What is the mission of TCU Wesley? It's to help, these students find a home and to belong and to grow and to develop. And actually thinking about generosity. I mean, you're a pastor, right? You think about, how do I disciple these people?
Up until recently, I've even used the mantra of give monthly so that we can spend less of our time on fundraising and more of our time on ministry. I'm leaning into seeing our work with sustainable giving as our mission, right? It is growing generosity.
Hey, everybody. So today is going to be something a little bit different. We just finished our early 2026 Sustainable Giving Workshop. We spent 2.5 days with 22 different organizations learning about how to grow sustainable giving for their charity. It was an incredible time of connection, of insight and inspiration, and growing recurring giving. In fact, during the workshop, I had an organization that we've had the privilege of working with, TCU Wesley, and Eddie Kahler be able to actually share his story of recurring giving from last year, when he just had the initial pangs of hope that this might be something for them, to today, where they're nearly 4 times the size that they were just a year ago. And he's just at the beginning. And so I would love for you to hear the story from Eddie himself. And so as we interviewed Eddie for the workshop attendees, we recorded our conversation for you so that you could learn and hopefully be inspired by Eddie's story. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Eddie Kahler. Eddie, I would love for you to just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about TCU Wesley and about the work you're doing and why that matters.
Yeah, so my name is Eddie Kahler. I serve, like a few of us here, at the Wesley Foundation. I'm at Texas Christian University in Fort Worth. We exist in like 3 different spaces. So we're a ministry of the United Methodist Church. We're a student organization with the university, and we're an independent nonprofit. So we kind of bounce between worlds, and we exist to serve college students. Our mission is to lead young adults toward lifelong discipleship by nurturing their faith development, by supporting their vocational exploration, and encouraging them towards community and service and justice. Now, I say all that because that's our organizational mission. That remains true today. But as we talked with donors and alumni who had gone through our program, we learned that what matters, why TCU Wesley matters to them, is that it is a home for them while they are at university, whether that's spiritually to grow, emotionally as they're transitioning into young adulthood and getting a degree, and in some cases physically, because they are hanging out in our space and building, and so that's what we do.
Yeah, it's awesome. So let's rewind the clock a little bit. You remember how we met? Talk about the little circumstances of that and just kind of what that initial connection was like.
Yeah, so I am not a nonprofit person, or I was trained as a pastor. So I went straight from seminary to a local church and then to Wesley, but realized there was a lot I didn't know. So last February, I went to my first ever kind of nonprofit conference to gain some resources and tools. And that was right around the time of the book launch. And so you were one of the speakers. I probably listened to about a dozen different breakouts and keynotes and lectures. But the talk around sustainable giving was the most practical. I thought was the most valuable. It felt like something we could run with and we could do.
So a couple months later, you and I had a chance to talk, and I just want you to talk a little bit about, because everybody in this room has obviously seen the opportunity. Like, it seems like this could be something that could be for us, or they're already investing in it and they're looking at growth, or they might be stagnant, right? Everybody here has obviously seen some version of the opportunity. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here, right? However, I'd love for you to just talk about, what was that journey for you? When did you first kind of recognize this could be something for TCU Wesley?
I mean, it started off with necessity. We had a grant to help pay for some staffing that, after 3 years, we were going to be responsible for funding that position on our own. And our time was running out. So we needed a reliable revenue source to be able to continue the work we were doing and the staff that was doing that work. So it started off by necessity, but so I knew that that was the path I wanted to go down. I think if you're asking me like when I finally felt like this could work was maybe the first time we led with recurring giving in one of our yearly asks and appeals. So we always do a back to school ask to our donors where we have to raise, and we're itty bitty, right? I have to raise $1,000 to get our welcome week back to school events off the ground. And you encouraged us lead with the monthly giving. I said, no, we need our programming money. And sure enough, we did that. We tried it, and we got some new monthly donors, and we surpassed our individual donation goal for our events. I thought, okay, now there may be something to this.
Well, and it was first, and just to accentuate the opportunities as people think about it, it happened to be the next kind of major thing that was going on the calendar. It was back to school. It's a natural time for you. It's the school starting. We've got some programming we need to execute. You'd traditionally done a fundraiser, and we just integrated. Like, okay, well, what if we actually ask for recurring gifts as a part of this? And I just love the boldness to be willing to do that. Right? You weren't not nervous, but to not only see that, and then like we said with long-term value, okay, well now you can start to do the math on what ultimately was generated in that 2-week campaign, right? By the way, back to your point about that, the necessity, right? The kind of emergency crisis, whatever you want to call it, of just knowing that you had a funding deadline. One of the things that I've often thought about and talked about is that, people tend to think of necessity as the mother of invention, right? Like necessity is the mother of invention. Well, the way I like to say it is that if necessity is the mother of invention, then crisis is the mother of innovation. Because so often I have a talk that I give on the myths of innovation that we tend to believe as leaders. And one of those is I'll innovate when things are really dialed in. Like once I get taking care of all those little problems over there, then we're going to launch the program. It's going to be perfect, right? And then what happens? You don't end up actually taking action. And so we all have crises that come up in our lives, in our work, in our funding, disasters, environmental, political, etc., that happen. And while I don't wish those on anybody, let's not waste them either. I was telling a friend about this a couple of years ago, Dallas-based friend, and I said, man, I don't know what it is, but I look back on my career and it was those times of crisis when we stepped up the most. Those are the stories I go back and tell, like, oh man. And I tell them with a more positive feeling than what I felt in the moment when I was dealing with the crisis, right? And he said, oh, well, you know what you need? You need a Crisis-tunity. And I was like, what? What? Say that again? He said, it's a crisis that represents an opportunity. And I was like, can I use that? His name's John Lee, by the way. He said, you can totally use it. By the way, it's from The Simpsons. And I was like, all right. So I found the clip of Homer Simpson saying, we need a Crisis-tunity. So just remember that. And some of you right now are listening to this and you are going through some sort of crisis. And how can you think about that as a Crisis-tunity? Okay, so let's talk about shifting mindsets, because I think a lot of us can have limiting mindsets around sustainable giving. This is not for me. I have a million hats. I don't have time for this. What would you say, if you could describe what might have been either a limiting mindset or something that just was unsettled for you? How did you, how have you kind of reconciled that? Were there any pivot moments for you in terms of just your mindset along this journey?
Well, one I named already, right? I used to think that recurring or sustainable giving was in competition with general donations. and that they were fighting for attention in the spotlight. And if I focused on one, I'd lose the other. So not only did our back to school event, start to disprove that, but then later, I guess it was in September, we had what is historically our largest giving day of the year, where the majority of our donations for the entire fiscal year comes in on one day. And it's a regional fundraising event where we have to raise like $30,000. And
by the way, does anybody else have like a giving day that they kind of in their community or whatever, right? Okay, so people can be familiar. So you had your giving day that you knew you could fundraise for.
And we were used to doing some of the matching and challenge grants for the individual donations. So I wanted to make sure we still had that, and we got to reach our goal because this is huge for our budget. And once again, Dave was saying, why don't we lead with monthly giving? But
Sounds familiar.
so we did, and we incentivized the incentive a little bit, right? You could double your one-time gift, or if you started off as a monthly giver, your first initial gift would be tripled. So we tried to like stack the deck a little bit towards monthly giving. And again, this mindset in me was shifted because we had like 10 new monthly donors on that one day of giving, and still were able to reach our threshold of what we needed for the general donations too. So again, I'm getting disproven by all of my fears about the competition between general donations and recurring. So that was one. I think two, we're an itty bitty nonprofit. There's two people on staff, and I'm one of them. And so I think we have this fear of just we don't have enough resources or people or talent to do all of these journeys and checklists. And when pressed to actually start doing the work, I did need help. And we had some students and board members kind of rally together with us, and the help was there all along. We just had to go look for it and ask for help, and we couldn't have gotten where we did without it.
Over the past few years, as we've worked with dozens of organizations to grow sustainable recurring giving, I keep hearing the same thing from leaders. They don't just want tactics, they want community. They want to know that they're not doing this alone. And for some teams, they're not quite ready for our sustainable giving deep dive accelerator, but they are ready for something more accessible, something that helps equip them, not just one person, but their whole team. That's exactly why we created RISE. RISE is a new implementation-focused group advisory program designed to help organizations grow recurring giving that actually lasts. It's a place where we turn insights into action, and then action turns into momentum. Inside our RISE program, you'll get live group advisory calls, office hours with me, ongoing education and training, access to guest experts, and a private community where you can ask questions, share ideas, and learn from peers who are wrestling with the same challenges you are. You'll also have access to our advisory team, so when you're stuck, unsure, or deciding what to try next, you're not guessing alone. Here's the heart of it. You don't have to grow sustainable giving on your own. RISE is where leaders grow recurring giving together with guidance, accountability, and forward momentum. Enrollment is open now, and if this sounds like something your organization or your team needs, I would love for you to learn more or raise your hand. You can visit sustainablegiving.org/RISE to explore the program or to express interest. We'd love to have you grow with us. Again, that's sustainablegiving.org/RISE to sign up or let us know that you're interested. Looking forward to seeing you in the program.
Talk for a second, actually, about the folks that you were able to identify, both volunteer and kind of staff board, that you pulled into the various kind of pieces of the process.
Yeah, so my kryptonite is trying to do too much myself. And
Can anybody relate?
So I've, again, shifting is learning to let others do things too, which is good for our mission. I mean, so we should be doing anyway, our cause. And so this involved like getting one of our college students who is majoring in graphic design, helping us build the landing page for our sustainable giving program, coming up with logo iterations and design iterations for our program. And then even also, like, there's more communication happening now with donors. And so leaning into letting the board of directors in on that communication. So emails and letters from our treasurer, from our board chair, so that people aren't just hearing from me. So,
Speaking of, I've got it here just so you can see it. Why don't you walk folks, and I know not everybody can see over here, so you can move if you need to, but the just kind of talk through, because when we started, a lot of those first activities that you did that created that kind of growth were without a program name, by the way, because some of you are thinking, I gotta go, Dave said I gotta go design the brand, and I gotta go build all this stuff, and I generally do think that you should make sure you have something. We talked about that, but that shouldn't be stop you from getting started. And so talk a little bit about how you came to the home, the concept of the home, and just the kind of the messaging, the way you think about it.
well, I was fortunate to have done some survey work prior to starting. So we had sent out surveys to alumni who had gone through our program and kind of asked them what was key, what was helpful, what do you remember most, what are your most formative memories, and just everybody kept coming back to, like, this was my home away from home. I was given a key to the building, and this is where I spent many late nights studying and hanging out with friends, and so it just kept coming back to this place. And so when it came time to figure out what we would name the program, we felt like this is where our donors are very people that have benefited from this ministry. This is what they value. And so it kind of worked out that we could also, it just fit us a little bit. So we talked a little bit through our own theology through the Wesleyan perspective, deals with homes and porches and front doors. And so it just kind of worked and fit us, not only through the lens of our cause, but also through the lens of our beneficiaries, and I think our donors too. We've got a lot of parents of students that donate, and I think they like that sense too, that there's a home for their student while they're not at home.
Also, just a little side note, we talked about pricing strategy yesterday and how to ask. Note the idea of anchoring happening even just on the form. And if you could scroll down the page, which there is a full page, so highly recommend going to TCU Wesley, type in TCU Wesley home, and you will find the page. But I just love how you're just planting seeds. You're just saying, hey, what would a gift of $10? What would a gift of $500? Could you talk a little bit about some of the response you've seen in terms of the donors signing up at different levels?
Yes. Well, I think we're going to talk about tech later, but I really like this giving platform because not this one's built differently, but if you go on like the main give button and you try to give like a $200 or $100 gift one time, it'll prompt the person instead of the one-time $100 gift, would you consider $50 every 4 weeks? And so I appreciated that the tech was also working in our favor and helping out. And yeah, we've had differing levels of monthly gifts that are all appreciated.
Yeah.
What is the technology?
This giving platform is Fundraise Up, and it's actually paid for. You have to worry about the tech costs, right? So Fundraise Up is actually paid for and covered through all of the donation fees, and people a lot of times will cover the fees, and so we don't actually have to pay a subscription to Fundraise Up.
Yeah, one of the things you didn't mention was early on, and we're going to talk about technology next, you were like, the existing donation platform is not going to work. And so you said, we've got to change it. So you identified this. You and I talked a little bit. You settled on this one and just worked with your team to get it implemented. And it's made a difference.
And worked on it again and again. Because once we thought we got it right, we'd get 10 new people sign up and, oh no, the data is not transferring over here and stuff. So, it took time to keep after it and keep searching on Google and asking ChatGPT how to make this stuff work.
Good. Okay, so fast forward to today. Let's talk about results and impact. So it's been, again, we're coming up on about a year. You and I have been working together for 6 months. Just talk about what the results have been, what the impact has been.
So at the end of 2024, before I went to this conference and got a hold of the book, we were just turning on the monthly option if you could find our giving page, and all this stuff was buried in the email at the very end. If you read the whole thing, I might ask you about becoming a monthly donor. And so at that point, year end 2024, we had 10 donors giving monthly to a total of $10,000 a year, averaging roughly of $100 a month. As of year end 2025, after trying a few things and 6 months of a lot of attention and effort and work, we were at 30 donors for a yearly total of $25,000 and an average gift of $70 a month. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's worth celebrating.
So again, itty bitty, but for us, now we're able to fund the staff position that we weren't sure we were going to be able to keep. And already our board is excited because as we're making our budget for 2026, a quarter of the funds that we need to raise from individuals is already accounted for and tallied in recurring giving. And then when you do the long-term value for just what we did in 25, that's like $50,000 of long-term value for our work.
Yeah, it's incredible. So encouraging. Well, and I want to accentuate this. You have done the work. It's one thing to say, hey, that was a great idea. Oh, I should probably do that. I should do that. But you've buckled down. You haven't done it alone. You've increasingly involved the people around you, which I think is key. But you've done the work, and you've executed. Now, the second time you do a back to school campaign is not going to be as hard as the first time you did a back to school campaign because you had never done one of those before. And so one of the beauties of these strategies that we're talking about are these things that can be repeated. Now, they should be freshened up. Again, timeliness, specificity, but you're not reinventing the wheel. The first time we did this workshop, I can tell you, it was about 5 to 10 times as much work as the second time we did the workshop, right? And so just know that it's worth doing the work the first time and doing it right. And like you said, sometimes it's like, okay, we did it right as we could this time, and we're going to improve next time. And that's the beauty of learning and growing. So I love that. So I want you to talk a little bit about not just what the results are, but what that's meant to you as a leader. Like, how has that changed the way you enter the new year, the way you think about what's possible?
Well, some of our talk yesterday echoes this, but I think for up until recently, I've even used the mantra of give monthly so that we can spend less of our time on fundraising and more of our time on ministry. So again, I had this like competing mindset, whereas now my outlook, I'm leaning into seeing our work with sustainable giving as our mission, right? It is growing generosity. And so we just communicate more with our donors than we ever had been previously. And I think that's going to mean a lot for our ability to maintain connections with our alumni and with our students. Now able to have kind of an open channel to where, in our case, we can ask for prayer requests for alumni and for donors, and we can check in on them because those channels are open instead of the once a month or once every other month, nervous email we used to send for major appeals.
Well, one of the things that you and I have talked about, and I think this would be interesting for you to think about for your organizations, is what is the mission of TCU Wesley? It's to help, these students find a home and to belong and to grow and to develop, and actually thinking about generosity. I mean, you're a pastor, right? You think about, how do I disciple these people? I think one of the things that's really excited me about our conversations is starting to think more holistically about actually how this generosity thing impacts the program work that you do. Not generosity's over here and then programs over here. Can you talk to that for a second?
Yeah, this is exciting too, because we just ran the year-end giving for 2025, and nearly half of our alumni giving is coming from young adults ages 22 to 28. So they recognize the value, the ministry of what's happening and support it. And that, I mean, they are so excited and thrilled to get behind what they know matters, and it mattered for them, but they know it's going to matter for other people too. And so it is changing our mindset, especially because our whole mission is lifelong discipleship, and part of that is lifelong generosity.
Okay, so you've got the proverbial and actual mic. So I just want to give you a chance to a room of people that are at various stages of their own development, their own journey. And by the way, throughout my career, I have constantly felt on the starting line. You know, every time you grow, hopefully, you have a growth mindset and you're thinking about, okay, what's next? So 1 year in, we'll talk about what you're thinking about for the future, but I would love to just give you a chance to encourage the leaders here. Any sort of key lessons that you've picked up on, or just encouragement that you would leave to the folks here?
Yeah, I think to go for it. I get so nervous when I start looking at, especially new tech. You know, we got to pick this new subscription. Is this really going to help us that much? But to just kind of rip the Band-Aid off, give it a try. The worst it can do is fail. And if we're already, we already have a Crisis-tunity. So why not try? And really, we learned that only a couple of monthly donors right off the bat is already covering some of those startup costs. So I felt like I was nervous to get started, but the return and long-term value of what would come in pretty quickly was already making it worth our while.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Sustainable Giving Podcast. I hope you found the information helpful and that you're able to walk away with insights that you can use to start building a steady stream of recurring revenue for your organization. For even more resources to help you build a thriving recurring giving program, go online to sustainablegiving.org. That's sustainablegiving.org. And lastly, if a leader comes to mind that you think would benefit from this episode, would you do me a favor? Would you share this episode with them? Just that little act could be the difference they need to start growing sustainable recurring giving for their own organization. Until next time, thanks for joining us.